Well, welcome everybody to the final session of the South West and Southern Wales Multi-District PEDS. Hope you had a great relaxing Sunday after a fairly full-on Saturday. And tonight, we're not going on too late tonight because there's only one item on the agenda tonight, really, and that's the question panel. I'd remind you of the normal Zoom protocols, please, including your home details. If you are home alone, please put a contact name and number in the chat so that we can get in touch with someone should we observe an issue going on anywhere. Also, please make sure in your own video image you've got your name and your club name, and you can edit this by selecting the three little dots at the top right hand corner of your video image. Select the rename option and add your name and your club name so we get a full view of who you are. This evening then it's a Q&A and it's a discussion with a panel of I believe 4 senior officers, and today the senior Rotarian who's going to be playing the part of Fiona Bruce in question time here is our own past RI director Brian Stoyel. So your questions tonight should be directed to the personal chat of questions Brian Stoyel, and he will be taking those and position them to the panel as we go along. So, oh yes, and the hands up facility will be ignored. So it's only questions through chat, please. That's the only fair way we can be. So now I would ask DGE Roger Heath to welcome the panel and set the scene. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dennis. I think my role tonight is to introduce Brian Stoyel, a man who needs no introduction as far as I'm concerned. 41 years a Rotarian, a past director of Rotary, a past president of Rotary of GB&I. He has formed his own charity, Rotary Eliminating Malaria in Tanzania. He's been all over the world. He has some very interesting hobbies, including scuba diving. I'll say no more. Brian, over to you.
Thank you very much, Roger, and good evening, everyone. I'm joined this evening by a panel of specialists who I will introduce very shortly. But in the meantime, I would ask all of you to consider a simple phrase. In James's case, what is Rotaract to you? The rest of us to consider, what is Rotary to you? I will ask members of the panel to briefly address this statement after their introduction. So this evening is very much your evening to ask those questions which have not been addressed during sessions 1 and 2, and perhaps which have been bugging you in the lead up to this very important year for your club, your members, and of course, for you. And as Denis just said, please send your questions to me via the chat box facility, and I will do my best to address them to the relevant panel member over the next 15 minutes or so. So our first panel member is John Denis, a foundation man through and through, from leading a group study exchange team to Australia, global and district grant coordinator, form filler for numerous projects, both in these islands and across the world, being a visionary in Pilot District for Foundation's Future, and currently serving as Regional Foundation Coordinator for Rotary GB&I. So good evening, John. So what is Rotary for you, John?
Good evening, Brian, and thank you for that introduction. And actually, while you mentioned working with other districts, I'll thank you and your districts and clubs for the support you've given projects that I've run through my own club and activities. That really is an illustration of what I see Rotary as generally. It's an opportunity for me to focus my wish to support communities, whether they're here in my local area in the East Midlands or elsewhere, whether it's the UK or overseas, places where I have contacts and interests. But it's not just a personal thing. It allows me to broaden that support to which I would have personally have no other contact. And through Rotary, I can engage others in helping to maximise that impact on those communities and to leverage the ability and resources of all our members. The Rotary Foundation is a brilliant mechanism for achieving that. supporting Rotarians and clubs in achieving their projects, large and small, through the funding and advice that we're able to bring your way. We raise the money that Rotarians will ultimately spend, only a matter of $340 or so million a year. We can therefore, because we've got that extra money with the extra resources, we can increase the impact that we as Rotarians have across the world. Of course, that increased impact supports our membership recruitment, which has a lovely virtuous circle, because then I've got more members that I can talk to about possibly helping contribute personally towards our funding. I'll just leave you with one last thought on that. Remember, foundation, as it's always shorthanded, is the Rotary Foundation, Rotary's own charity, and it is my charity of choice.
Thank you very much, John. I know it's going to be an exciting evening with you on the panel. So our next panel member is Steve Martin, currently representing Rotary International as Membership Rotary Coordinator here in Rotary GB&I. Steve is a retired police officer serving both the Metropolitan and Merseyside Police. Having spent the last 17 years of his career training police dogs and handlers, specializing in explosive detection. He informs me the easy part of the training was the dogs, but I digress. Now, Steve's involvement with Rotary stems back again to being selected for a group study exchange team to Queensland, Australia. And in later years, he led a group study exchange team to Brazil. Outside of Rotary, Steve is a huge supporter and tour guide at Liverpool Football Club. A new venture has seen him as Deputy Registrar, enjoying the opportunity of sharing people's wedding days. Steve is married to Rotarian Maria and has 2 children, one a Rotaractor. So Steve, please tell us, what is Rotary to you?
Thank you very much for that introduction, Brian. Seems like me and John need to get together and talk about GSE in Australia. Actually, that falls part of it, really, because when you mention what does Rotary mean to me, I always think of 3 words, and 3 words to me are service, opportunity, and leadership. And this is a personal thing. This is what Rotary means to me, because obviously it gives me the opportunity to go out and do service, because I think that's what people join Rotary to do, and that's what we're asking them to come and join us. Come and join us on a project. Let's go and do something hands-on, and let's go and do this. Let's go and change something for somebody. We might not be able to change the world, you know, as a small club or a small group of individuals, but we can actually change somebody's world, you know, and that's what I really like about Rotary. That's what really got me interested in the first place. And the second one is opportunity. Rotary International is a world of opportunities, and sometimes, sadly, a lot of people don't realise this. And I've been really fortunate, like John. I've travelled the world with Rotary. I've been to Australia, I've been to Brazil twice. I've been across America, across Europe. Some of them funded by myself, some of them funded by Rotary International. And actually, probably the most memorable was going to India and delivering polio drops, you know, in the searing heat on a street in India, you know. What other organisation gives you the opportunity to do things like that? Those opportunities, by the way, weren't just open to me. They were open to everybody in Rotary. You just need to know where to look to find them. So it's not just about being in a small group of people. And finally, leadership. And leadership has been very important to me in my career. And also, Rotary's enabled me to enhance my leadership skills. And now, you know, I get the opportunity to try and push this huge membership thread, which should be running through every single thing that you do in your Rotary lives. It's all about membership, because of course, without members, we are nothing. I think that'll do for now, Brian.
Thank you very much, Steve. That's really, really great. And it's good to see you again.
Yeah, Angie.
Now, our next panel member is Rotarian Rotaractor, James Thomas. James is a dual member of both Rotary and Rotaract. He is the current charter president of the North Wales and North West of England Passport Club. From the 1st of July, he will be chair of Rotaract GB&I and sit on the Rotary GB&I board. Professionally, James works in technical training and development for a payments company. So James, let us tackle one at a time. For you, what is Rotaract to you?
Thank you very much, Brian. It's fantastic to be here. and I love the whole concept of the districts coming together to do so much more. So really love the opportunity to come here. What is Rotaract to me? I love being asked this question. Firstly, it's definitely so far the best decision I've ever made, because Rotaract unites people. It brings people together. We in the UK have this sort of big wall, social barrier between people. You know, we're very reserved as a culture. When you join Rotaract, it's broken down, and suddenly you go, okay, we're good people. Let's have a chat. Let's get to know each other. That connection, for me personally, has been a huge, huge formative thing in my own personal development. So bringing myself out of my shell, opening my eyes to the good in the world, and actually learning how to siphon that, harness it into community-driven projects. So as a youngish person, I wasn't really connected to the community until I joined Rotary and Rotaract. And then the whole international aspect of it, I've been to, if someone said to you, you can go to any country in the world and you can connect with people straight away, local people. You don't have to worry about any sort of fear of strangers, because we all have that shared moral values and ethics. That's what Rotary and Rotaract is. And then the Rotary Foundation, it is so phenomenal. I was lucky enough to go out to Uganda and lead on a project. Now, what charity goes, all right, you can have some of our funds and you're doing the work, you know, you're at the forefront of it? That is absolutely incredible, especially for a younger person who may not have the project management experience. You know, that gives you such an incredible way to actually develop yourself and help other people. It's phenomenal. So that's Rotaract for me.
Thank you, James. That's an excellent start again for the evening. Our final panel member is Garth Arnold from the Emerald Isle, and currently Vice Chairman of the newly formed Rotary GB&I Executive. Garth, having retired from 40 years in banking, now helps his mother run a small antiques business in Ireland, as well as watching sport. Having been a founder member of a Rotary Club, Garth has found this is a valuable asset to him in the role as a public image coordinator for several years. So Garth, what is Rotary to you?
You all hear me okay?
Fine, thank you.
Yep, okay. Sorry, it was just, I have a additional speaker on my desk just to make it a bit easier. Yeah, well, I suppose it's interesting listening to everybody, and I suppose it's good that we pick out the same aspects. I suppose two key things that are what excites me about Rotary is the global aspect of it, and how we touch the lives of those all over the world. And you know, what we really want to is to inspire those so we can help more people. And the other thing that's very passionate to me is to encourage our youth, and it's really to be able to reach their potential as our future leaders. And I suppose I got an early insight of that in 14-15, where we have a brilliant youth leadership program in Rotary Ireland, where we take 24 students every year across to Euroscholar, which is the junior European Parliament. And I was very privileged to be a leader back in 14-15. It's brilliant to see how the students developed and progressed. You get 24 together and sort of they don't know anybody, and then at the end of the 4 or 5 days they're all in tears because they've sort of excelled themselves and built on. And this year, because of the COVID issues, we've actually had to design a program ourselves, and I've stepped in at the last minute last weekend to be a leader, as one of our leaders wasn't well. So I had sort of another passionate experience of being able to take 14 students around Belfast and Dublin last weekend, and we're finishing off in a few weeks' time. So you know, loads of things that you can pick out of Rotary, but what excites me is our opportunity to develop our future leaders. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you very much, Garth. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is the politeness over with now, I think. You've heard the panel speak, you've heard their love of their topics, but I'm sure that there are a few questions out there which may unsettle those feathers a little bit. But so we'll go off. And I'm going to go straight in, I suppose, to John Donnell, Foundation. One of the questions come in, how soon will Foundation realize tackling the eradication of polio is an impossibility? Only in the last few weeks have we heard of a case in Malawi. How many more are really in the world unreported? And has the Foundation learned a lesson? John, over to you, please.
Okay. Start with the easy ones, are we then, Brian? Thank you.
Yeah, that's the easy one to start with, I thought.
Good. Well, it's one of those questions that's an interesting one to answer, because it starts in my mind, from a wrong premise. The eradication of polio is not impossible. Nothing to do with Rotary, but years ago, the World Health Organization and its co-partners eradicated smallpox from the world. We are so close to eradicating polio. We haven't had a case of polio, wild polio virus causing, or haven't had a case at all in Pakistan now for a year. Yes, there are the occasional cases in Afghanistan. You mentioned the case in Malawi recently. That was an individual case which was caused by a traveller from, actually, as it happened in Pakistan, travelling to meet and stay with his family in Malawi. That was identified quickly, and a campaign of vaccination of that person, or the contacts, and the village and the surrounding area have all been covered. And yes, we have those sorts of cases all over the world from time to time. And until we've got rid of the live cases, and therefore you will find in a short period of time after that's happened, the environmental samples will die away. We do a lot of Rotary's work is not only the vaccination, it's monitoring the environment, setting up the necessary chains to achieve all of those campaigns of vaccination where it's necessary. And as the environmental sampling shows there's a decreasing amount of virus in the community, there will be less opportunity for it to spread. It is every risk that that same traveller from Pakistan could have come here. And frankly, not all of our children are vaccinated with polio. It could happen anywhere. It really is essential that we do this job, hard as it may be. I wouldn't deny it's hard. I would absolutely deny it's impossible.
Thank you very much, John. And a question for James now, please. James, what relationship has Rotaract with Interactors?
That's a really good question, actually. One that could be greatly improved is what I would answer to that. So we do have a district that has essentially brought up a Rotaract club based on Interactors. And so that's sort of hand-holding the development from Interact to Rotaract. And, you know, it's fantastic to see, because we have an untapped potential in Interactors where they already know the power of Rotaract and Rotary. And so they're ready to make that step. But it seems to a similar thing has happened as there was from Rotaract to Rotary, that step hasn't necessarily been taken. So yeah, what we really want to do is identify areas where we have Interact clubs and go, oh, could there be a Rotaract club here? Could we start that club off the back of Interact clubs? There are a few districts that are doing that, but it does need to happen because we've got 200 or 300 Interact clubs in GB&I, and the relationship is strong though, fundamentally, because the values are very much aligned. Although a 16-year-old and a 30-year-old are quite different, there is so much more overlap and relatability, and Rotaractors have a place as a sort of mentorship role for Interactors.
Thank you, James. All right, thank you. A question for Steve next. Steve, Nowhere in our rules and regulations does it state must have a meal, ring bell, wear regalia, say grace, give loyal toast. So why do some clubs bemoan these activities and constantly complain about costs, rigidity and formality of meeting? Does it call for an edict from on high? Do as you want.
It's kind of answered itself, really, hasn't it? That one, I think. Are they saying that they? I don't quite get the question, Brian. Are they saying that they believe that we should have the choice? Is that the?
No, I think they're trying to say why do some clubs moan about these things, and yet there's nowhere laid down that they have to do it.
No, exactly.
So
exactly.
Why not just go out there? But does it need a bigger directive from Rotary International to say, do as you want?
I to be honest with you, I don't think they could make it any clearer. We do talk about this all the time, but at the same time, what we do have to understand that there are clubs out there, and that's what they want to do. They want to meet every week and they want to have lunch. That's what they do. They're very productive. They carry out projects. They are what we would call in inverted commas, traditional clubs, I would suppose. But we can't escape the fact that some of these clubs are the backbone of our organisation and have done great work in the past, and will probably go on to do great work in the future. However, people joining Rotary these days, probably that's not what they're looking for. And this is where we have to have a little look at ourselves. If we are a traditional club and we meet at the golf club every Wednesday lunchtime and have a 3-course meal, why can't we attract anyone to our club under the age of whatever it may be? That will be one of the reasons, folks, is because people can't get away from work. They don't want to pay £25 a week to be a member of a club. They don't. £2 a week it costs to be a member of Rotary, nothing more. Anything else that you're charging people to be a member of your club, whether it be for wine, beer, Rotary chicken, or whatever it may be, that is something that you're imposing on them. That is not something that Rotary International is imposing. Rotary International imposes a £2 membership fee, and that's it. So I don't think we could be really much clearer. There are a lot of the clubs that are being formed now. We are still getting traditional Rotary clubs formed. That's fine, because there is a place for them in Rotary if that's what people want. But there is no reason for you to sit and have a meal every week. A lot of people have come back after COVID and have now moved to every 2 weeks, having meetings online as well. Some of them have dropping the meal completely, or going out and going to different venues once a month, all that sort of thing. People are changing, but the traditional Rotary club that meets every week in a location and has dinner, they are going to struggle to attract people. Not all of them, I'll be honest, not all of them. Some might be quite successful, but generally speaking, they're going to find it more difficult the way the world is now.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you very much. A question for Garth. Garth, in your new role, this is for the Rotary GB&I board, how will you as chairman communicate with clubs on a regular basis?
Yeah, thanks very much, Brian. That's a good question. Some of the things that we've talked about, I mean, we've just met, or the appointments board have just met recently, and we've just elected the nominee person, which was the last person to be appointed onto the board. And what I want to look at is doing some frequent newsletters out to the clubs and districts, probably on a monthly basis, branded regional board. So one of those to come out very soon will be on the new nominee person, plus doing some more work just to sort of remind everybody as to the position that we've come from, and sort of a bit more on the clusters and how we're going to operate. Another thing I'm keen to look at is to look at some focus groups where we sort of deep down and work with some of the clubs in that. And I think we could probably look at that within the cluster model to try and do that as well. I think that'll, because I know if we open it up across Rotary, GB&I, it's probably too big, but I think we could look at some focus groups at the cluster level, and that would allow us to get messages out, plus actually get information from the grassroots back, which is most important.
Right, thank you very much, and Garth. Another question back to James just a second. Why do we find getting Rotary recognised by universities so difficult? Could Rotary not join as a national student body?
So the problem with university-based clubs is the first one is each university has different criteria around a society. Because when a club is formed as a university-based club, it is formed as a society. These are generally quite insular. So you're not, it's a bit counter to what Rotract is, because you're not welcoming people outside of that university. It is different per university. And then you have people that are doing all the roles in the club. So they're probably going to be the third years. They're taking up roles, they're keeping the club afloat, and then they graduate and suddenly there's a big void. That's the other flaw with a university-based club, where that if you don't have that constant flow of people, it fails. Whether we could leverage some sort of national body presence, and that could help. I mean, that's a good idea. But there's a pro and a con to every sort of club type, and there is definitely a reason why we only have the university-based clubs only make up less than 10% of our clubs in GB&I, because of that lack of sustainability generally.
Right. Okay. All right. Fine. Thank you, James. Going back to John now. John, we've got a few questions quite naturally concerning Ukraine. What is the foundation doing practically to support Ukrainian refugees? I take it from that question, they mean perhaps here and in other countries.
Yes, sure. And I think that's a lot, obviously, but it's no longer very early days, and the Rotary Foundation has already put into place a lot of action. We have for a long while.
We seem to have lost you, John. Is that so, Wendy?
Yeah, he seems to have frozen
All
on
right.
us at the moment.
Okay.
Maybe move on to another question
Yes,
and
I'll
come
move
back
on to
when
another
he,
question. Thank you very much. Okay. Steve, would you like to fill in there, because you did something beforehand about membership. Would you like to fill us in a bit more about membership, please, in general?
Yeah, well, how long have you got? Not long enough, I know. Yeah, I mean, what we need to understand, and I think everybody knows this now, that membership is our number one priority. We've got a huge situation going on out in the Ukraine, and it's a perfect example of what Rotary International does. We respond, and as groups of people we respond. And if you haven't got enough people in your group of people to respond, you feel pretty helpless, so we need members. Everything we do, every single thing that we do needs to have a membership thread in it. Last year we lost 2,800 members in Rotary in Great Britain and Ireland, and that's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. It's not all bad news, because actually we are, although we're losing members, we're recruiting members as well. And like I said before, those people that we are recruiting are forming different types of clubs, and there are lots more different types of clubs on offer, which people will probably ask about. For instance, my own club, of which James, actually, who's on that side of me, James is actually my club president. So he might be a Rotaractor and dual member, but he's actually my club president. So our club is very different. We do things very, very differently. So I'll be out in the market square on Friday with 4 other members from my hub as part of my club. Okay, so it's only a hub. There's only 4 or 5 members of us, but we'll be out doing our bit, and we contribute to the entire passport club thing. So there's different types of clubs, and we're offering different types of membership, and actually the whole thing revolves around inclusivity. We need to be more inclusive as an organization, and we need to, as in Rotary in Great Britain and Ireland, every single district has to have a club, or should have a club, that is completely inclusive. So as that anybody who approaches us and approaches the district membership chair and says, I'd like to join Rotary, We need to make sure that we have a club that is suitable for that person, okay, no matter who they are. That's what we need to aim for. A lot of districts have this now. So if your district hasn't, that's what you need to be thinking of. And that's the message that I say to all districts and all different sort of national meetings as well. We need to be more inclusive.
Thank you, Steve. That's good, because that's answered another question which I just received before asking you to speak. So thank you very much. Inclusivity and diversity. So we're on the right wavelength there. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Gareth, I'm going to come back to you very quickly. The question about, we know that there's always been this, oh, we change the slogan every year. You know, we change our motto, Rotary image, imagine Rotary. Why can we only use that really in a Rotary sense? Why can't we use that to the public? What's the rationale behind that?
Good question. Yeah, I suppose, and it is a question we always ask ourselves, because there are some years that some of those themes, the Rotary theme that we have a year, we always think is really, really good. But I suppose the overall Rotary word on the wheel is license, and that's our sort of brand piece. That's our global brand of what we use. And it's been going back for many years, and I'm sure, Brian, you can add bits to that too. That the Rotary president coming in has their theme, and I suppose it's a bit like your club one or your district one, things like that people want to sort of use to sort of put their mark on society and what they want to do, and it's more of an internal use only. And unfortunately, I suppose that's what we have to use and what we work with. Now, I suppose people stretch it slightly on the basis of internal use. People have it on posters and things that they use internally and things like that. And you're not going to tell people to sort of take them down, but the rule of thumb is you can only use the internal logo internally within the organization, and for all external use, you're using the Rotary wheel and the word Rotary.
Thank you very much. Okay, Garth. Is John, are you back with us now?
I hope so.
Oh, jolly good. Right. So carry on, please, could you?
I'm not sure where I got to. So
no, I'm not sure either.
Clearly, it's a very worrying situation for everyone in what's going on in Ukraine, and the millions of refugees that are being caused there, both at the moment internally displaced refugees and those who have got as far as leaving, crossing the borders into the surrounding districts, and in fairly near future, if not already, are travelling to further countries as well. Rotary Foundation has the Disaster Response Fund, which I was talking about, I think, when I probably froze up, and this has existed for quite some while, whereby there is a substantial fund available for immediate help, immediate funding as well, to help with any natural disasters. Now, last week, the Rotary Foundation trustees agreed that we would, in a sense, the Ukraine thing is not really a natural disaster, but nevertheless, they've agreed to use the donations fund for that purpose, for supporting refugee relief. And they've decreed that any funds given to the Disaster Response Fund before the end of April will be directed in their entirety into supporting relief in and for the Ukrainian refugees. At the moment, and this is a little bit hot off the press, and I'm probably going to be treading on someone's toes, but we are across GB&I working between Rotary Foundation, that fund, and the humanitarian services team, to look at work with the concept. How can Rotary best work with all the other organisations that are going on across Europe, primarily, I'm sure, to support refugees? That fund from the Donations Trust is available immediately and is already being tapped into, initially by districts that surround the borders of Ukraine, so sort of Poland, Hungary, and so on. and Rotary districts that are there can apply for grants of up to $50,000 each to support whatever actions they're taking in their local areas. And immediately as of today, we can be applying in our districts for grants of up to $25,000 at a time for work we're doing within our own communities. And so there's good money available. And then the progress we're planning on and working on this week, and it will be sorted out this week, is to work in conjunction with the government, who've just launched their guidelines for hosting families, and local authorities, so that we can help with phase 1, internally displaced refugees, phase 2, how do we in UK help, or GB&I help best with refugees who are displaced to the surrounding districts around, or surrounding countries around Ukraine. And then phase 3, what can we do to identify, help, bring people together to support people, the many, many people there are in our own country who are saying, please, how do I get to help refugees? So it's not just the Rotary Foundation, it is the whole of the Rotary leadership team, Foundation worldwide, and specifically in GB&I, work being done from, in conjunction with the whole of the leadership team here.
John,
do you know
Yes, John, do you know the latest situation regarding shelter box? Are they in Ukraine yet, or what are they actually doing? Do you know?
I don't know explicitly, Brian. I have seen tweets saying that they are there, but I haven't got any specific stories.
No. All right.
One other tweet I did see yesterday, just to add to what I said, was even as of yesterday, and that's only about 4 or 5 days into the Donations Trust being available, the Donations Trust had received, the Donations Trust, when I'm talking the Disaster Response Fund, had received over $2.5 million towards Ukraine relief as of yesterday, and I'm sure that's gone up again by a very substantial amount.
Thank you very much. Okay, can I go to James now? James, you're in that very invidious situation for a lot of people because you're both a Rotaractor and a Rotarian. How do you manage to play, or when do you put on both hats? Or what hat do you wake up with, and what hat do you go to bed with? Could you enlighten us, please?
Yeah, sure. So what I would say to that is they're both the same hat. We're one organization with 2 membership types. I just happen to be part of both. What I like to think of when we think of Rotaractors, we're not thinking of leaders of the future. We're thinking of leaders of the present. And it's the same thing for Rotary. We are leaders leading leaders. We're people of action. It's the exact same thing. So being a dual member, they both have their different flavors. Yeah, if we're a Neapolitan ice cream, Rotary's chocolate and Rotaractor's strawberry, but we're still in the same pot. So they do have they serve different needs. I love being a dual member, absolutely. The only reason I'm in Rotaract because I want to see it develop, but I'm very content with my Rotary membership, and that's because of the wonderful club that I'm a part of. So they both serve 2 different needs. It's interesting. Rotaract, I would say as well, is probably more social because it's more confined to a certain age demographic. So for me personally, it makes sense socially, but also I love hanging out with people of all generations. So yeah, they serve different needs, and it's just great to be involved with both things. It's not for everyone though. I have to say that because it does eat up more time because you can't easily be a dual member when you've got, in theory, twice as many meetings to attend. So it definitely isn't for everyone.
All right, thank you very much, James. Steve, I want to return to you now because you mentioned just now that we lose so many members in the course of a year. Do clubs entertain exit interviews? What's your opinion and view on that, please?
Yeah, they do. I mean, we have every district, as we know, has a district membership chair. And I meet regularly with Leslie, myself and Leslie meet with our district membership chairs. And this is something that we talked about in the past, and it is really important. And Rotary in Great Britain and Ireland does actually do an exit type survey as well, and contacts people as they leave. And one of the things that we're actually doing now is that we're saying to people, look, you know, are you really ready to leave? Would you like to go somewhere else? And we're offering people, you know, a place in the global hub, the Rotary Global Hub, whilst they can reassess and perhaps see where else they want to go. And this is where another, you know, a different type of club, or a more flexible club, somewhere where, in your district I'm talking about now, is somewhere where you could park somebody, so people can actually can go to a more flexible club, a passport club or an e-club, and park themselves there until they've decided, do I really want to leave Rotary, or am I looking for something different, and they can go to a different type of club. So actually clubs should be looking at this sort of thing. You know, if somebody wants to move on, or even, for instance, if, you know, a club closes, people, you know, if a club closes, and it's something that I hate to see, you know, there might only be a few members left, but that doesn't mean that they all have to leave Rotary. Absolutely not. There's people there, they want to carry on. They can go to another club, they can form another club, they can form a satellite club, they could form a passport club, or join the e-club for the time being until they find something more suitable. You're muted, Brian.
I do that, yeah. E-clubs have been mentioned elsewhere. Can you give us an example of what they actually do and what they achieve?
Well, I mean, realistically, the best people to speak about are people who are in them. But the e-clubs, I'm going to see some great examples across the world. And I know somebody, in fact, who's on this call tonight, who actually lived in this country and was in an e-club in the Caribbean, you know, and it works. And if you listen to some of the things that they do and what they achieve, it's quite ingenious. It really is. And actually, that e-club lifestyle really suits some people, because not everybody is in a position where they can, they work 9 to 5, and they can go straight from work, or they can go at lunchtime. Not everyone's in that position, but there's a lot of people who want to contribute. So being a member of an e-club, they meet obviously online, but they don't have any boundaries. So for instance, the e-club of Southern Scotland, they fell out of another club, if you know what I mean. They all started meeting, but people started moving around, and they were moving. Somebody moved over to Germany, but they stayed in the e-club. They can actually stay with their friends in the e-club, and it is successful. And what they do is they can get involved in. It is a district e-club, but people are spread around, but they can still get involved in national projects and in international projects, even as an e-club. So it does work. And actually, the best way of finding out, and this is how I found out about passport clubs, if you've got a genuine interest and you really want to know what they do, is go onto Facebook, go online, find one of them and send them a message, and follow them on Facebook and find out what these people do. Because that's how the passport club idea came into this country, purely by just being curious and investigating it. But they are very, very good clubs.
Thank you very much, Steve. A point for Garth now. Garth, do you believe the new Rotary GB&I management structure will achieve its aim?
Well, I suppose if that's a very good question, this one. Yeah. But I suppose when I sort of applied for the post and looked to do that, I suppose, you know, why do we need to change? And I suppose my sort of view is that, you know, we need a more effective Rotary. You know, we need to be able to look at trying to, I suppose, shrink down what we've got at the moment. And I suppose it's down to our team of 12, which is on the board, plus we have 4 non sort of voting members to sort of work on initiatives and things what we want to do for next year. I mean, as Steve has and both John there mentioned, you know, two of our key priorities are our membership and foundation, and the more members we can get, the greater amount of more donations we can get for foundation. So I suppose it's a very open-ended question. I suppose the key thing is it's not to pick, sort of, when you're in business you talk about low-hanging fruit. So you want to pick some things that are probably a bit closer to the ground to sort of work on and get the momentum going, rather than pick too many things and be too ambitious and not achieve anything. So probably a good question 3 months in, Brian.
You mentioned something there. You mentioned about image, and
Yes.
there's been another question come in. Do you think having two ladies at the helm next year, Jennifer Jones and Nicki Scott, will help the organisation?
Yeah, well, I saw that question coming in, and I wrote a few things down. I wrote very positive, more inclusive, and more modern was sort of things that came into my mind. So I think it's very welcoming. It made me focus and look at our panel here tonight, and we're all male. We're all male on the panels, so, which I hadn't sort of thought of before. But I think it's really good. I mean, I think it's probably a big step for the organization, but most needed, and I think it'll be well received.
All right, thank you very much. Yes, and by the way, I didn't pick the panel. I say I wouldn't have picked you to start off with, so nothing against anybody else.
Yes, I know.
John, can I come back to you, please? And the question is, why did the Rotary Foundation stop matching the club's contribution to the global grants from the World Fund?
Well, I appreciate the question. It's one we've been asked many times. It's not a complete stop, of course, of money coming from the World Fund to support projects. What it is a reaction to the fact that our clubs here in the UK and across the world are increasing rapidly the number and the total value of projects that people are asking us to support, which is absolutely brilliant. It's good to know that more and more people are aware of the value of the Rotary Foundation and aware of the possibility of us helping both with funding and also with advice and guidance as to how to run good projects. So we're delighted with that, but it creates a challenge. If you increase the number of grants that we're being asked and the value of the grants we're being asked by 10, 20, 30% a year, and our income is basically flat year on year, we are as Rotarians still donating at the rate we always have, but we're actually creating greater and greater demands on the foundation. Excuse me. So the Rotary Foundation trustees had to take what they acknowledge is a very difficult decision, having looked at lots and lots of parameters as to how best to juggle this inability to get a gallon of water out of a quart pot, or whatever an appropriate analogy is. How on earth, if your income is staying stable and your costs or your outgoings are going up, can you match the two? And one of the things, well, clearly we could have just said, okay, well, every year when we run out of money, we'll stop funding any more grants, sort of first come, first served every year. Not a very attractive option for all sorts of reasons. Lots of other opportunities and possibilities looked at. Doing away with district grants was one possibility, for example, so we could fund more and more of the bigger, more impactful projects. But I'm sure that many of you think, oh, for Christ's sake, don't do that. No, that wasn't included. The rationale that came out was exactly the one you've seen, which is that the amount of matching that we can give to any project has to be somewhat limited. There's an answer to it. The answer to it is donate more to the Rotary Foundation. I'm sorry, but that's the reality of life. And if you're not sure how to do it, I'll let you know.
Thanks very much. If I can come back to Steve now. Steve, do you think there's a need for a long-term club president, say for 4 or 5 years, to lead and steer the club, leaving the membership to contribute as best they can in their own natural ways?
It's quite an interesting one. Normally, when I get asked questions, I've been asked them before. I've never been asked this one, so that's interesting. To be honest with you, do you know what? By default, this is happening already. Maybe not 4 years, but I know that there are some posts in clubs that are going on for a long, long time. I've spoken to presidents who've been secretaries who've been secretaries for over 10 years. When it comes to presidents, I think that, and this is a personal point of view, I think there is some merit in that, maybe certainly doing it for longer than 1 year. I mean, this has often been talked about You know, and if you look at our own board, our own newly formed board, some of the you know, some of the posts on there are for more than 1 year. So realistically, I don't see why it's something that we, you know, we could look at. But again, you know, there is no Rotary police, and I know this is something that our General Secretary John Yuko is one of his favourite sayings. Sometimes you have to try these things. You have to try them out, bend the rules a little bit, and see if it works. And you know, if we're doing everything fairly and we're doing everything squarely, and we look at it through the four-way test and think, do you know what, this could work. If it's for the benefit of Rotary and the benefit of your club, you know, why not? Why not give it a go?
I think Gordon more or less said the other evening, try it, and if it's wrong, you get told off. Sorry, but it's not. It's only a simple sorry, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right,
don't ask the question first, do it and get told off later.
That's right. Right, okay. Coming back to James. James, if you had a magic wand, what would you do with it to get Rotaract back to its heady days of, what, 20 years ago? What's the modern feeling? How would you do that?
So I can't use the magic wand to just make people appear as members.
Right. Okay.
No. Well, so what I would do is I would twirl that wand and wipe the slate clean of the perception of Rotary, because I think one thing that's unique about GB&I, and perhaps people would be a bit upset by this, but Rotary and its association and its stigmas leaks into Rotaract as well. So if you're thinking that Rotary is just for elderly people shaking a can outside of Tesco, you're probably not too excited by Rotaract. So where there are countries such as a lot of countries in Africa where Rotary is younger and more dynamic, Rotaract is also rising up very quickly as well. That's a variety of reasons unrelated to that. But that's one thing that when I've been speaking to a lot of new people and ask them, oh, you know, we're part of the Rotary family, there's these preconceptions that damage us. So I would love, and that would help Rotary too, enormously. So I would love to just wipe that clean and people just didn't even know about Rotary. It would be better if they didn't know about Rotary and they learned about the amazing thing that we do internationally and at home from anew.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. And I'm going to repeat here because I got questions sent in on Friday and Saturday, and I'll read this question to you because I think you've answered it. As Rotarians, we are on the whole rather elderly. We do not make a good advert for promoting the formation of Rotaract clubs. What we need is Rotaract squads to do this for us. So I think you've answered that very well. So even without knowing what the question was, so good. Where am I going now? Well, I'm going to go back onto the foundation again because John's quite popular this evening. John, since the pandemic, many clubs have found it difficult with fundraising and consequently have given less to foundation. Now, as we all know, this is going to have an impact on the amount of funding available to districts in 3 years' time. Are there any other consequences, and how will foundation manage these?
Well, I suppose in a way it's an extension of the answer to the last question about the way that the Rotary Foundation trustees have adjusted the balance of where we distribute the foundation's monies. Clearly, yes, it has been a challenge, and we recognise that right across all of the foundation leadership. The couple of points I would make. I know you may find, I'm not sure whether I should be saying this, but I must admit, I find that going out into the general public and saying we're raising money for the Rotary Foundation, even if it's explained clearly as Rotary's own charity, is a bit of a tough ask. It always is, whether it's a pandemic or not. But the thing that the one program, the one project, if you want to call it that, mega project that Rotary has, ending of polio worldwide, and all the associated health chain benefits and setting up of support for COVID recovery and COVID vaccinations, and all the work we do in vaccinating children against measles and mumps and whatever else goes in childhood vaccines these days, all of that funded by our End Polio Now campaign is easy as pie to go out and fundraise for in the general public. What I would like to think is that all clubs and all individual Rotarians switch thinking or build their thinking towards supporting our own charity with our own contributions. We are more and more trying to get across the concept of personal donations to our charity, making the Rotary Foundation, each of us, our charity of choice. I'm not going to deny that people want to give money to other charities, but we're Rotarians. We want to do good in the world. We recognise the value of the enormous number of projects that Rotary does through our members. What other charity can we give money to where we decide how that money is spent? Rotarians actually then go and spend that money. You know, we decide as Rotarians how it should be spent, and we then spend it. And it's such a highly efficient charity with 90+% of that money going directly back to the beneficiaries. There's many other charities won't be doing anything like that proportion. So it's every good reason why our charity should be our own personal charity of choice. And for those that are making personal donations, or hopefully people who will soon start to do so, make sure that money is going to the Rotary Foundation UK, and they are told who is actually donating that money. It's all very well saying, oh, we've collected this money together as a club, here's £1,000 or whatever the number may be, and sending it to RF UK. When you do that, make sure RF UK know who, Rotary Foundation UK, know who has contributed towards that money. And then it can go not only into bolstering your club's tally of donations, but also you personally. And we're very keen to do that, partly so we can make a point of thanking people and going back to people and saying, we are really pleased, thank you for your donation. And if you wish, we want to recognise and thank you for that donation with either one of the sustaining mender pins that we've launched across the country, or if these donations amount to a more significant amount, by making people fellows of the Paul Harris Fellowship as a recognition and a thanks for giving $1,000 or more to the foundation. So that's really where the push is.
Okay, I'm going to go back to Steve in a second, but before I do that, John, the old hot chestnut has come in here. Could we have a different name instead of foundation? It does not really say anything in our country, does it?
Well, there are lots of other foundations in our country. You'll have heard me say several times already this evening, Rotary Foundation is Rotary's own charity. And that's, what more can you say? If you wished to market it in any sort of publicity campaign or whatever as the Rotary charity, what was it you said, Steve, earlier about no police? We'd be delighted. If you feel in the event you're at, by all means, talk about it as the Rotary charity and raise money for it that way. Its official name is the Rotary Foundation, and that's how I'm sure we will continue to call it. But it is our own charity. Just remember that and tell people that and market it that way. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you. Steve, you have a question which I think you wanted to direct through me to James.
Say that again.
Steve, did you have a question for James just now?
Well, it was, I put my hand up actually because I just wanted to tag on to what James was talking about. He was talking about getting people in. It was a comment, and that comment is that the districts that we have here tonight, I'm sure that they'll be doing RILA this year, and hopefully they will do. If not, get involved because it's fantastic. But you do something like RILA and you have 40 students that go away and have an absolute unbelievable experience, fantastic experience. And at the end of that week, we all stand at the gate and we all wave them goodbye. 40 people, 40 Rotaractors we're actually saying goodbye to there. I've never, ever been able to get my head around why we do that. And I'm just using RILA as one example. What other competitions, youth opportunity, youth exchange programs does your district do? And then you wave goodbye to them at the end. You even actually get them to come to your club and talk to you and you say how marvellous they are. but none of them go forward. They are all in contact with each other. They're all in WhatsApp groups. They're all on Facebook groups. They are all in touch with each other for 2, 3, 4, 5 years afterwards. They are actually a Rotaract group, but you don't know about them. Every single RILA student should become a Rotaractor, and we need to change that this year.
Steve, while you're on the line there, what do you believe is the greatest challenge to Rotary in being attractive to new members?
I could pass this straight over to Garth, couldn't I, and say public image, but I won't. There are lots of it is about how people see us. It is about people's perception, and we need to change that perception. You know, somebody mentioned before about, you know, old men in grey suits with checks. I mentioned this at my own club meeting the other day when they said, we'll go down to so-and-so, to the Rota kids, and we'll present a check and we'll get a photo presenting a check. I said, no, you won't. I said, what do you want to do that for? I said, why don't we go down to this cancer support centre, stand by the sign, and then hold a Rotary sign above our heads, or just do something like that? Why do we have to stand there with a check like that? I said, that is the Rotary image. And as much as everybody says we're trying to change it, they do the same thing time after time after time after time. And we will never be able to fight against that if people don't actually listen to what our public image team say. And our public image team say to us all the time, you know, can you try and do this? Can you try and do that? And people just ignore it. So public image is one of those things that we have to do. And of course, I've said it before and I'll say it again, we need to make our clubs attractive and we need to make them inclusive. And inclusive is the big one. You know, inclusivity is absolutely paramount. If you have a Rotary meeting upstairs and somebody in a wheelchair can't get up there, your club is not inclusive. If you choose as a Rotary club not to include female members, then you're not a proper Rotary club as far as I'm concerned, and you need to have a look at yourselves. And actually, you know, let's face it, there will be people, we've got 114 people, 114 Rotarians on board tonight. Folks, we have to realise that as an organisation, there will be people on this call tonight that will believe that we should not have females in Rotary. And that's sad. It is sad. So that is where we need to change things around. And actually, the shift is going in that direction, because I think it was between July and September last year, nearly half, just under half of the people that joined Rotary were female in the 6 months from July to December last year.
Do you have statistics, Steve, for the diversity and things like that easily available for members?
They are. I wouldn't say easily available for members, but we can get them.
You can get them. All right.
I just had some. New members out. The new members last year. In fact, I've given them wrong. I couldn't go up on my screen quick enough. 32 female and 23 male. So the females are far outdoing the males in terms of it. But of course, don't forget, this is not about a male and female thing. Inclusivity is about everything. It is, you know, it is about, you know, full diversity in all of our clubs, and we need to be inclusive for everybody. All
right. And going to James. James, you mentioned in your introduction a passport club. A lot of people don't understand what a passport club is. Could you very succinctly tell us about it, please?
Yep. So passport is the name. You essentially get your Rotary passport. You can go and help out in a load of different clubs in the area. It offers complete flexibility. So people don't know this, but you don't have to attend Rotary meetings. You can attend projects and meet your attendance requirement. So we go and dart off away. We're very active. We're very project led. Mine and Steve's Passport Club is quite different to that model, but that is the model. And the key takeaway there is ours is very different because, as we all keep saying, there's no Rotary police. What works for one club doesn't work for another. But what does work for the club is everybody being happy with it and it being led by the members and not them being told what to do. So that's as succinct as I can get it.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you very much. Garth, where do you see Rotary in 10 to 50 years? That's a rather time. So let's go back a bit. Let's say 10 to 20 years.
Where do I see Rotary? Brilliant question. Where do I see it? Well, I see, I suppose, just, you know, where we are now, I suppose, as Steve has talked about. I mean, one of our goals for the for the board must be to try and see how we can get ourselves back to 50,000 members. I know Steve will like that, but I mean, we have to sort of look and see what we can push ourselves to. I mean, I think we've come a long way in the last couple of years. I mean, I was doing a presentation to one of our local Rotary clubs where I live, sort of tell them a little bit about the new board and all that sort of thing. And I mean, they were very, very enthused to actually see Rotary trying to change to sort of match other organizations and what they're doing it. So I think we're in a really good place. And I think, I mean, it's down to us all. As Steve would always say, okay, you've got your membership person in your club. He's not the only person that's responsible for membership. It's everybody. So I think the responsibility is probably on us all to try and see how we can sort of drive this wonderful organization forward.
Thank you very much, Garth. Has anyone, Garth, to your knowledge, had much experience on the Toastmaster initiative, or is that a question for Steve? The Toastmasters.
Well, we have set up a relationship or partnership sort of with Toastmasters, and we did quite a bit of work. And I know Steve sort of was involved in that at the start of the year. And I suppose, I don't know, Steve, do you want to pick up any more on that?
Yeah, I actually went to Toastmasters. I heard about this thing and I thought this looks interesting. I've heard about this sort of stuff, this Toastmaster thing. So I Googled my local one, which was Liverpool City Centre, and it was online. And I went along for the evening. I was made very, very welcome. And I thought I was just going to sit there and observe for the evening. And then they do a thing where they do table talks, and it's like three minutes or 5 minutes on a given subject. And they included me on that. Much to my surprise, I had about 20 seconds notice, and I thought, but really enjoyable. But I also got an opportunity to explain a little bit about Rotary, and we were going to try and put that club and the local club together, because actually what would be really good is if the local Rotary club, who meet actually about 50 yards around the corner from them in real life, they'd be able to go to their meeting, and maybe the Toastmasters could go to their meeting and have a bit of a mixture. But there are some things going on. And I've been to a couple of national meetings as well, mostly around Hearts, Beds, Bucks type area, and it's been quite successful in that area. So there is some take up on it. They are similar type people, but they don't generally do a great deal of project work in their communities, but they are the sort of people that probably would like to.
I've heard from the Great Yarmouth have got a great close links between Toastmaster and Rotary Club. So there again, Leslie Sully is your contact there, and Robert Lovick. So again, there is possibility there, and great leadership strengths can be derived from Toastmasters. Right, I'm starting to bring this to a close now. I thank you very much for all your questions this evening. They've been fast coming in. I hope that we've dealt with them. There's just one come here now, which I'll pass back to you, Steve. What about amalgamating with Inner Wheel? There you are.
Inner Wheel are a totally different organisation. They are a totally different organisation to Rotary. And I'll be quite honest with you, I went to, when I was district governor, I went to some Inner Wheel functions, was made very welcome. But for me, I don't think it would ever work. But I don't see there's no reason why we can't work together closely. But I just don't think a full amalgamation would work. That's just my
opinion. All right. I'd like to go around each of the panel now with your final thoughts from the evening, please. Can I start with John, please? Just a few final thoughts for the evening.
Yes, once I found the unmute button, that's certainly happy to do that. So let me just say why the Rotary Foundation. Well, I've mentioned this evening, it's a very efficient charity. It spends money directly with beneficiaries. It's effective, with every project having its needs properly assessed, both to make sure they're needed by the community and they're going to be sustainable. And that's one of the drivers of the Rotary Foundation, to assist clubs in doing that. It's sustainable, so that all of our projects, we don't spend the money. We always, let's start that sentence again. We know exactly where we spent the money, and we do make sure that money is making a real impact on the communities. And the Rotary Foundation, our own charity, exists to serve Rotarians.
Thank you very much, John. All right, James, can I come to you next, please?
Yep, two things. So first thing is, we've all been speaking, but it's good to remember that you are Rotary. Rotary is its members. We're a grassroots organisation, bottom up. So keep that in mind in the year ahead, that you are driving us forward. It is your responsibility to bring us into the new age of Rotary. You have such an important role. And the second thing is, don't forget about Rotaract. We're all equals, and keep us at the forefront of your mind. We're always here to support where possible, because there is not many of us in GB&I, but that is rapidly, exponentially changing.
Thank you very much, James, and I wish you the best of luck. Garth, your final thoughts, please.
Yes, well, just firstly, thanks very much for being invited along. I think I was just looking at the participant level. We were up to 122. I suppose I'll maybe throw one question out there that I sort of got asked, but sort of on us going forward. Communications is one of our key challenges, and I've sort of been involved in public image that sort of links in that. And we've always had challenges on how to try and keep in contact. So if anybody has any ideas on how we best engage or keep in touch going forward, I would love to know. So I'm sure you can get hold of my email address. I'll just drop it into the chat box. But if you've any great ideas, I would be more than welcome to hear them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Garth. Steve, a few thoughts for you, please.
Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you very much, first of all, for allowing me to be part of the panel. And I love speaking to Club Rotary.
We noticed that.
We
noticed that.
But I love speaking to Club Rotarians because, you know, we talk about how we're going to attract people to Rotary and public image, and that the clubs are the public image of the organisation. They are the people that are out there. They are the people that are closest to their community. And if I had a message to give to you, ladies and gents, who are incoming leaders in your Rotary clubs and incoming leaders in your community as well, is the message would be to be brave and go back to your clubs once you've done all your training and say to them, listen, do you know what? We should change. We should do something different this year. Whatever we've done in the past, we're going to do something different. We're going to change this. We're going to change our identity a little bit, and we're going to attract more people to our club.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to hand back now to Roger Heath. Roger, over to you, please.
Thank you, Brian. I think that has been a most splendid question time. My wife would tell you that on the BBC question time, I always fall asleep at the second question. However, I did not fall asleep this evening, and I want to thank your panel for their thought-provoking answers, some of them provocative, some of them I agreed with, some of them I disagreed with, and I'm sure that goes to everyone, upon whose behalf I have pleasure in thanking your panel and your good self in being the chairman. Thank you very much, Brian.
Thank you very much.
I'll hand over to Denis to wind up the evening.
Well, thank you very much, Roger. In fact, we've got one more brief item before that, and that is that we have a video message from our own RI director, Nicki Scott. So I think if we've got the video queued, there's a 5-minute video.
Hello to all my fellow Rotarians in this particular corner of the world. Living in the Cotswold countryside, I consider this to be my home. Having spent 25 years in America, I could not be happier to be settled back here where I grew up. I am so glad that I've been invited to share a few words with you at the end of this President-elect Development Seminar. There is no doubt whatsoever in my mind that you are all about to step into, or possibly stay in, the most important job in Rotary. As you are no doubt aware by now, this is a time of considerable change, and it is all about fostering greater collaboration to increase our impact, expand our reach, enhance engagement, and increase our ability to adapt, as captured in our Rotary International and Great Britain and Ireland Action Plan, which is now available on our website. Thank you for leading the way in all coming together for this event. In order to lead change, we need to start with a compelling vision so that everyone knows where they're going. If not, we can end up acting like this.
Of Trinidad, next to him, Fernandez of Spain, and in the outside lane, Foreman of Brazil. Well, that was fun, wasn't it?
Thankfully, we do have a great vision that helps us imagine a brighter future. Together, we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. My favorite element is in ourselves. We need to look at all the ways being a Rotarian has impacted us personally and share those stories with others. Simon Sinek, Start With Why, a wonderful, wonderful, famous businessman in America, but I love his book, Start With Why, and there's a great TED video out there too. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. What is your why? How do you answer what is Rotary? Do you start talking about meeting for dinner in the evenings and how the food isn't always as great as sometimes it could be? Well, you've soon lost somebody if you're going in that direction. I was once told that the best way to answer the question is to say, it's the best decision I ever made. And I've tried that a lot. And the great thing is it makes people pause. You just pause and it makes them wonder, well, why is that then? And now you've got their attention. I have personally gained so much from Rotary, especially in terms of leadership development, for which I'll always be immensely grateful. And it actually has passed on to my children, and it truly has been the gift that just keeps giving. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself in what ways Rotary has been a gift in your life? Let me ask you right now, who have you given this gift to? In my opinion, every age is the right age to receive a gift like this. Our founder, Paul Harris himself said, there is nothing in Rotary so sacred that it cannot be set aside in favor of things better. If Rotary is to realize its proper destiny, it must be evolutionary at all times and revolutionary on occasions. We need to take pride in our heritage and all that we have been over this past 117 years, but at the same time, embrace the lessons we've learned along the way as we've had to adapt to this global pandemic. We now have the opportunity to build forward better, greener, and fairer, and there's no going back now. So I want to thank you all for taking this opportunity to serve as the leader for your club next year. My question to you is, are you going to manage the status quo, or are you going to lead and be a change maker, rowing in the same direction as those around you? Are you going to be evolutionary or even revolutionary leaders? I hope you will, because make no mistake, the future of Rotary in Great Britain and Ireland depends on it. And finally, let's be sure to have some fun along the way as we work together to imagine Rotary and all that it can be in these islands. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Nicki. And well, that leaves it just to me to wrap things up finally. So thank you once again, Presidents-elect of South West and Southern Wales. You are now officially among the best prepared President-elects in the world and ready to finish the plans preparing for the year ahead of you. On behalf of the District Governor-elects and the delivery team, I say thank you for your attendance and your participation. However, we also owe much thanks to the DGEs and the district teams for making it happen, because coming together as districts within a cluster is new. We haven't done this before. And so it's been a great, great experience for all of us. And thank you, DGEs and teams. Also say thank you to the content designers advised by past District Governor Chris Davies, and to the facilitation team that's been drawn from districts and Rotary GB&I squad led by Bob Maskell. To the technical support, Phil Dyer and Wendy, I hesitate to name them all, but the facilitation team and speakers have been drawn from all over Great Britain and Ireland, and in fact, some of them around the world, as we know when we met Jenny early and Gordon and so forth earlier in the week. So thank you everybody for that. It's impossible to thank everybody by name, and it's impossible to give a huge round of applause on Zoom. We know that. So I thank each and every one of them on your behalf. I do hope you've enjoyed the experience. And with that, we say good night, good luck, stay safe, and have a wonderful Rotary year as club president. Good night.